Okay, let's talk about how good is it. Let's do this with New Jersey. Now, it really depends on your point of view. Either things look pretty good or things look pretty shaky. I honestly think this team could move up this year, but I can understand why some people are picking them as a team that may miss after making the playoffs this year. It's a tough call. It is not an easy call. And I'll say why. Now, Hall is clearly the guy who he is the straw that stirs the drink. He is everything that the New Jersey Devils have needed. Probably since Elias was in his prime, I'm going to say up front. And it is an amazing job that he's done. And with Johansson being added last summer for not a whole lot, that helped. And then you got Coleman and Woods. So this is a really solid left side, no matter who's playing on what line. Not getting into lines today. Yesterday with Boston, I could talk about it a little bit more because I watched every Boston game almost last year. And I say almost because, there were nights where I'd be like, oh, I can't watch the Boston game because I got to watch that one instead. Down the middle, Jersey's got Hischier, Zacha, Zajac, Boyle. McLeod and Quenneville could push their way into this lineup. And it makes it very interesting to me because on the right side, you got Palmieri, Bratt, Nason, and Anderson. And Joey Anderson, who got signed out of Minnesota Duluth, he gave up his last 2 years of college eligibility to sign with the Devils. He didn't do that so he can play in the minors. He may, but that's not why he did it. What New Jersey can do with this lineup is roll 4 lines. The one thing Jersey has to worry about is setbacks, like a sophomore slump for Bratt or for Hischier. They need Zacha to develop a little bit further along that scale. They need him to be a number 2 center because Zajac really isn't that guy. Zajac at best should be your third line center, which leaves Boyle in the fourth line, which is pretty solid. Now on the blue line, you got Green, Vatanen, Butcher, Severson, Mueller, Santini, and Lovejoy and Greiber are there as well. So you've got 8 NHL-level defensemen. Now, where it gets interesting to me is, I've said for a while now that I think they overplay Green. So coming into this year, I would expect to see Vatanen as the top 2, absolutely. But either find a way to get Severson if he's playing on his wrong side. Sometimes teams do that. They'll get a defenseman. They'll have 2 right-handed defensemen or 2 left-handed defensemen if they have to. But I really think Green will get his minutes cut back this year. And it'll be interesting to see if Will Butcher can take that step forward. Butcher started like a house of fire. Like, he was fantastic. And then offensively, he tailed off. And we'll see where he sits this year in terms of overall defenseman. Vatanen had a slow start after he got to Jersey, but picked it up pretty well in the second half of the season and was a big part of the reason that this team ended up being a playoff team. The trade out with Henrique could be done because they had Zacha. They didn't really need help down the middle. Michael McLeod could make this team this season, and Quenneville's been knocking on the door for a while. Now, the biggest question mark when it comes to the Devils, other than youth, other than there's a lot of young players that stepped up and played key roles this past season. Can they do it again? Schneider, Kincaid, Lack. Now, Lack's on the board because if Schneider gets hurt or Kincaid gets hurt, Lack's the backup. And, I think Schneider's better than the way he played this past season. I know there's a lot of Devils fans that are not really fans of Schneider's right now. And I see, various saying, trade him. I think it's easy to forget how well he played prior to this season because this past season was not great. And injury-wise, it wasn't great for him either. I think if he comes in with a clean slate and if he's 100% and if he's good to go, and that is a question mark with Schneider, but if he can overcome, and once you get into hips and knees, that's a big if. But if he can overcome that, he can still be a starter. And if not, well, Kincaid proved to me down the stretch and in the playoffs that he is a starting goaltender in the NHL. And up until about the midway mark of the season last year, he hadn't really shown that. There wasn't really a whole lot of encouraging signs involving Keith Kincaid, and now there are. So for Devils fans right now, they likely are confident about Kincaid. and there's some uncertainty with Schneider, and I understand that. But I have some reservations looking at the team in general, but not every rookie player going to their second year can all hit a rut. That I can't remember a time that's ever happened. So there's no way that you're going to see Brett, Hischier, Butcher all fall back. One of them's going to take a step forward, and I really think Nico is going to end up being a really big key part of this team. I don't know that he ever gets into the stratosphere when it comes to points, but I think his overall play, I think, is going to be key for the Devils moving forward. He could be their MVP as soon as next year, because as good as Hall is, I think Hischier is pretty darn near almost as good. Remember, it took Taylor Hall a while to score points at the level he did this past season. He's never done it before, so the other question mark with the Devils is, can Hall do it again? It's the same question Colorado's going to have with McKinnon, and both of them can do it, but odds are one of them falls back at least somewhat. And if Hall falls back to earth or falls into that 65-70 point range, the Devils could struggle to make the playoffs. The good news for them is they have a solid enough supporting cast to keep it interesting. So there you go. It is a good team. They had a learning experience this past season. They got dispatched by the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round, but they put up a good fight in the first round, and now it's a matter of taking that next step in 2019. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through and you just happened upon this video, and this has been How Good Is It? New Jersey Devils edition.